know, I'm something of a podcast myself. I'm something of a podcast myself. You know, I'm something of a podcast. I'm something of a podcast. I'm something of a podcast myself.
All right. Welcome to episode 19 of Something of a Podcast, the only podcast brave enough to say, I'm something of a podcast myself. This is our first episode coming during Trump 2.0 Electric Boogaloo. So we've got that going on here. I am, as always, your host, Mike Gamms, and with me is the incredibly talented KaiVonDoom. Say hello, Kai.
Hello, Kai.
I'm glad some things don't change. But yes, I know I set it up top. I couldn't even wait to get it out because it's just like on the minds. It's I had to address it, but yes, we are here in the well, it's not quite yet. It's not quite Trump's America 2.0, but we the sequel was just announced. It was greenlit. We are headed for Electric Boogaloo. That's what I've been trying to get that to catch on. Like we're going into Electric Boogaloo, you know?
All right, keep up with it.
Yeah,
Uh, yeah,
yeah,
I'm just in disbelief. Like I want to say I saw this coming, but
yeah.
like,
I've been saying that I got the last three elections wrong, my predictions, because I thought Hillary was going to win, then I thought Trump was winning the second one, and then I thought Kamala was going to win. However, I now have a new thing I've been saying, which is that I thought she was going to win up until the moment that they started acting like they had already won because Tony Hinchcliffe said some racist jokes at the Trump rally. And I know we could get into that. We want to get into that a little deeper. But like for me, that was kind of the moment when I really started to doubt it because I was like, man, if you think like I was just as outraged or whatever, but I'm like, if you think that racist jokes has going to have a negative effect on the Trump campaign, whoa.
yeah,
And that this like I started seeing the posts like it's crazy that this comedian is going to affect the outcome of the election, and I was like, oh no. Don't say that.
not
Knock
at
on
all.
wood when you say that. But yeah. So what do you have any thoughts about um MAGA 2.0 Electric Boogaloo? I know we were going to talk about Tony Hinchcliffe before the election because that was the thing about, but we didn't get a chance to. But I still think it's a relevant. Or yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if none of the other racist shit that Trump himself has said has affected his campaign, I don't know why someone thought Tony Hinchcliffe would affect it. But the thing I have been noticing is with Tony's appearance at the rally, and then subsequently, Joe Rogan came out and finally endorsed Trump, which we all knew he was a Trumper, but like he finally
Mm-hmm.
just came out and said it. And there have been so many white male comedians who you could tell they were afraid to admit that they were pro-Trump before. And now they're like, okay, we won. Like even before it was announced that Trump actually won the election, like you said, they had this attitude of we won. And so they've been coming out the woodwork themselves and wearing their Make America Great Again hats and openly saying the
Mm-hmm.
things that they thought they would get canceled for before. Now this fake fear that they had of being canceled is gone. So people are just saying, just off the wall things, and it's only going to get worse. As someone who hosts an open mic, I am not looking forward to the way I'm going to have to babysit these men.
Yeah. Um. I really do think there is a direct correlation between these like alt-right edgelord like comedians and the MAGA movement. They're deeply entwined with each other, and like you said, Tony Hinchcliffe, who runs, like, I'm not a fan of it, but he runs the world's largest open mic, and it's a highly influential comedy show where everywhere I travel, I go places, you run into people, you talk to people, people find out you're a comedian, they ask you, oh, you should go on Kill Tony, or they mention
Yep.
Kill Tony all the time. Um, Almost as much as they have mentioned Joe Rogan, but that's been over the course of the last 10 years. The Rogan thing has been
Mm.
right? And um, yeah, so there, like you're saying, there's a lot of these prominent, like influential white male comedians in positions of power and gatekeeping within the comedy industry are openly MAGA Trump guys. And I've kind of we've seen the writing on the wall for years. We've been kind of warning people about this edgelord to alt-right pipeline, starting with when these guys were having these alt-right fascists on their podcasts years ago and saying it was just about comedy or free speech. Um, and yeah, one other thing I want to add real quick is to not let him off the hook either. Is so we have Joe Rogan and we have Tony Hinchcliffe, and then there's this other very prominent sort of force in comedy known as Skankfest and the Legion of Skanks. And they have several festivals around the country. A lot of comics who I even like and know do these festivals. But the guy, we've talked about it on here before, Dave Smith from Skankfest, basically was trying to do what Tony Hinchcliffe did before Tony did. He hosted a libertarian convention this year and had Trump there to endorse Trump as a libertarian, trying to convince libertarians to endorse Donald Trump. And this was over the summer. This was months ago. So the way I see it, there's these like at least three very prominent forces in comedy: Kill Tony, Joe Rogan, Skankfest, and they're all intertwined, and they're all openly run by Trump surrogates. It's wild, not wild. It is what it is.
Yeah, like you said, at the current moment, when the average person thinks about stand-up comedy, they're thinking of Tony, they're thinking of Joe Rogan, and these two people, like you said, are openly endorsing Trump. And I think it's a thing of where these people, these edgelord comics, can no longer lie and say, "Oh, it's just jokes. I don't mean any of this. I'm not actually racist. I don't actually this that." I, like you don't know my politics. They can't hide behind any of that. So it will be good kind of to expose them, but I think it's really gonna, yeah, I think I don't want to say Joe Rogan swayed the election, but I do think there are a lot of very impressionable young white men who definitely voted the way he told them to vote.
Mm-hmm. Um, and earlier this year, literally Tucker Carlson was a panelist on Kill Tony with Joe Rogan. Like they're just up there pounding it up with guys like Tucker Carlson. What's the other guy? The Canadian sort of men's rights fake doctor guy, Jordan Peterson, and Tucker Carlson are regular or like have been on Kill Tony several times as the
Yeah,
arbiters of what's funny. They're like literally sitting at the gate, like, because that's what the whole show is about, is that you go on there as a comedian and you get judged by this panel of experts and they decide whether you're a good comic or not. Well, you got Tucker Carlson sitting there right next to Tony Hinchcliffe and Joe Rogan as the arbiters of, or whatever, the judges of what's good comedy.
yeah.
It's
Every time I've heard
fucking
Jordan Peterson's
bonkers.
name in the past few years, it's because he was on some comedy podcast. He's not a comedian. Why are
Correct.
all these comedians putting Jordan Peterson on their fucking podcast? But then again, these are the same dudes who have been saying for years, we're not political, we're not this, we're not that, we don't care about either side.
Correct. Yeah. Like even a comedy club that I actually really like, the Laughing Skull in Atlanta. It's a pretty cool club. They had Jordan Peterson on stage a couple years ago. I got in like a little. I got
Doing
kind of
doing
upset
what?
about that. He was there at a show and then they brought him up on stage and like took pictures with him like he was just like he was a celebrity guest, not like acknowledging what kind of celebrity he is. Just like, oh, isn't it so cute that he was here, like, or whatever. And they brought him up on stage. I wasn't there for it. I just seen the pictures and got mad about it, and like exchanged some words or whatever. But like, uh, I've been saying this, and people sometimes get mad at me, but I'm like, they won the culture war. At least right now, they fucking are in control of
Yeah,
like so much, and they act like they're the victims, and they're being canceled and silenced. But they have the lion's share of influence and voice in the comedy industry. Like, but are claiming to be silenced all the time. Um,
that's
it'll
ridiculous. They're
be
bringing like
yeah,
Kyle Rittenhouse out on stage and
yeah,
just
Rittenhouse.
yeah,
And it's especially frustrating because like many of us have been specifically calling out exactly this for over 6 years, 7 years, since 8 years since the first Trump election about the direct pipeline between these edgelord comedians and platforming fascism and fascists, from Milo Yiannopoulos to Richard Spencer to Tucker Carlson and now fucking Trump himself. This is what they've been building for. Is like Joe Rogan and Tony Hinchcliffe now are in the White House. Correct. They are
yeah,
a part of that administration going into the White House. They are very much a part of the Trump administration. Like it's
yeah. And what people don't understand, and I guess will understand now, is that it's never just jokes. Comedy is never just comedy. If you're saying something over and over and over again in front of large crowds, you are normalizing an idea. It's not satire if you're just saying racist shit over and over and over again and giving actual known racist platforms. That's not satire. That's not being edgy. That's not free speech. You are normalizing that behavior and normalizing that line of thinking.
yeah, absolutely. Did you happen to watch the whole like appearance from Tony at the Trump rally?
I did.
His whole
I did.
10 minutes that?
Yes, I watched the entire
Yeah,
thing. And it's bad that he had so much racism in there that like the calling Puerto Rico a floating island of garbage wasn't even the worst or only thing he said. Like people can talk
right.
about the racism against the Latinx community, but he fired shots at everyone. Like racism against Black people is so normalized that when he made that slick comment to a Black man about like, oh yeah, it's a watermelon eating contest or something,
Yep.
like people don't even
Watermelon
talk about
carving
that
instead
because
of
that type
pumpkin
of
carving.
rhetoric, yeah, it was watermelon carving, yeah, that type of thing is so normalized that people didn't even register it. It's like, oh yeah, of
Yeah.
course he made a Black people liking watermelon comment. That's what we expect. That's normal.
And even like as a comedian, it's offensive. Like you're telling hack street jokes from the fucking, Jim Crow
Yeah,
era. You fucking hack. Like it's a fucking new
yeah,
material. Like,
yeah.
for fuck's
Everybody's fucking
sake.
grandpa at Thanksgiving could do the fried chicken and watermelon stuff. Like that's not. It's not
Yeah,
even
like
clever.
no, you're doing like, and then like he literally there's a part where he's like, it's basically like how those Latin people they be fucking. It's like what or
Yeah,
whatever the hell he's saying, but just like the
yeah. He's like,
most.
oh, you guys sure have a lot of babies. It's like,
That's what it
okay,
is. Yeah, I'm like,
what's the joke there? What's the
uh,
punchline?
um,
You're just
yeah.
naming stereotypes. You're not writing a joke.
And he did that thing where he starts to blame the audience for like his jokes not landing. I'm like, you're in the most racist room in the world in America, and your like hack shit is bombing because like you didn't understand, like you didn't do the gig. Like I mean, I guess in hindsight it worked out for him, but um, like there's a way, that he could have done that, and like, not that I would like it, but actually like crushed it, give like without like
Yeah.
just a little bit more effort into his racism to like code his jokes better and like write better jokes, and he would have like but he just was so lazy about it. Like he just came in with the laziest jokes, the laziest racism, and just like, yeah. But in hindsight, I think it's probably going to work out for him. Um,
Unfortunately, yeah.
yeah. So I was saying before that it's going to be more profitable for him than anything, because getting canceled is like the most profitable thing, for these people. Um, I do have a wild theory to throw out there, but I wanted to if you see what it's related to this, but do you have more thoughts about this before I go off this theory I got?
No, let's hear the theory.
Okay, my prediction in 2028, Tony Hinchcliffe is going to be running for president as the Trump to replace Trump. If not
Oh,
Tony, at the bare minimum, a Kill Tony panelist. More likely Tucker Carlson.
okay.
But I think a very strong case could be made for that. That's the kind of path that they would go down. Um, and you heard it here first, 2028. I think that, unfortunately, I think that Tony Hinchcliffe, uh, as a Trump surrogate, Trump replacement, is going to beat AOC in the election. um, and it's going to be because the Democrats spent the whole time trying to convince moderate Republicans, the supposed moderate Republicans, that Tony Hinchcliffe's racist rhetoric was too extreme for them. And then we're gonna be stuck with the Kill Tony presidency.
I'm
Like,
laughing now, but when it does happen, I'm gonna be so pissed.
I mean, it's like it wouldn't be Joe Rogan, right? Because he doesn't seem. But Tony, I could like, as fucked as it is, I think um it is entirely possible that this is what they're building toward. It'd be like he's gonna try to do what Dave Smith has tried and failed to do several times. He already is doing, like, because Dave Smith wanted to run for president as a Libertarian Party, and then kind of backed out, and then ended up just trying to like be a Trump kiss ass and endorse Trump at the Libertarian convention, and never really got any traction for it. Like, so I'm sure he was sitting there watching Tony Hinchcliffe get all this press for doing the Trump thing and is like super jealous. But I could totally see that him being in, like, Joe Rogan and Tony and all these guys being involved in the Trump White House, so much so that Trump, while president, is a panelist on Kill Tony. And then come 2028, we're going to see Tony Hinchcliffe run for president. And this is the bad place.
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening now that you say it.
Sorry to put
This is
that evil in
definitely
the
the
world.
bad place.
Um, so yeah, that was my big hot take on that. Um, um, do you have any more thoughts on MAGA 2.0 Electric Boogaloo, or the Hinchcliffe, Rogan, alt-right edgelords, comedian, uh, yeah, being emboldened?
Yeah. I will say after the white boys start showing their asses and acting a fool in the comedy scene, I'm just dreading when like black men follow in their footsteps because it's gonna happen. There's gonna be men of color who are gonna try to edgelord their way and to be accepted by the white people, and it's just not gonna happen. It's gonna be a
Yeah.
disaster. There's already a few edgy black male comedians in the Rochester comedy scene
Mm-hmm.
that that have been pissing me off lately. And I feel like we're just gonna see more of that. Because
Yeah.
again, it's usually something we expect from the white guys, but I've been seeing it a lot from men of color lately. That whole like red pill manosphere rhetoric.
Mm-hmm. Um, yeah. I mean, the odds are if you have for every 10, 2, the Trump statistics would be, 2 out of 10 maybe voted for Trump, as opposed to white men where it's like 7, I think. It was like, so yeah, they're there for sure. Um, although I have seen also, just on the opposite end of that, I've seen white women who have been screaming about how like black men voted for Trump. Have you seen this? They've already been going after black
Yeah.
men when statistically, no, that's not what happened. Black men voted for Kamala Harris.
Yeah.
They did 80% or
Yeah.
78 or
So
something like that.
yeah, so I'm in a group chat with a bunch of the local female comics. I'm the only black woman in there, and they've already started that. They're like, "Oh, I can't believe blacks and Latinos voted Trump into office." I'm like, "No, no, no, baby. That
Mm-mm.
was you. That was you. Don't do that. Don't try
Yep.
to skirt the blame. That was you. That was your people."
Yep. Absolutely.
But white
Yes,
feminists gonna white feminist at all times.
correct. Literally, the page Feminist News, which has like millions of followers or whatever, posted that as like a headline yesterday about how black men voted for a racist or whatever. Like, and it's did you what? That's not what happened. Yes,
Yeah.
Latino men did. That number did change from being voting in favor of Biden to in favor of Trump. Um, but that one. But there's a lot to unpack there, and uh, yeah, it's not the way in which the liberals are so quick to jump to the racism when they feel like people aren't in line.
Yep. Every time. And when I pointed out that black women almost exclusively voted for Kamala, she's like, "Well, I'm just saying what I read." Okay. And she all this same comic also was saying, "Oh, I'm so scared for my queer friends and this and that." And I was like, "Okay, what about your black friends? What about people of color?" And she's like, "Oh, well, we're all in this together." It's like, okay, you could see how things are more difficult for queer people, which, I mean, obviously being a queer woman myself, I know this, but like I could hide that part of me. I can't hide being black. So it's just
Correct.
like how we're always thrown under the bus at all moments.
White people are
It's
white
depressing.
peopling hard. I've seen
Yes.
posts from people saying uh like horrific things to like Arab voters in Michigan for not falling in line. Like, I've seen like white women calling for a boycott of Arab-owned stores in Michigan because they feel like that because there was like the whole undecided movement in Michigan and they had, strong opposition to Kamala's policy of genocide in Palestine, of their people. And so
Mm,
instead of, ever pointing the blame at the establishment and at the liberals or the Democrat, it's always like blame this marginalized group or that marginalized group. Or get other marginalized groups to blame each other too. There's a lot of that too.
yep. Yep. Yeah, the racism always jumps out in these people when it's like, oh, we're all in this together. And then the second the tables turn, it's like, okay, let's point the fingers at black and brown people every time.
Yeah, absolutely. And um, like I feel like we're just it's just everything's on repeat. It's like how many times it's like people never learn. It's the same shit every time. Like we've had this almost the same election like a couple times now, and It's the same
Yeah.
discourse, the same talking points. People don't fucking learn. It's even Obama was out here chastising black men, telling them they need to get in line and stop fooling around. You remember that? You seen this, right? A couple days before the election, he had this
Yeah.
big whole thing about how you, like, my fellow black men, you better not screw this up, basically. And then 80%, 78, whatever the number is, but significantly, overwhelmingly, they fell in line like you asked, like you want, like there was never a concern, and it shouldn't have been. The problem is not it's not black voters. That's not and condemning them for their votes. That's not the winning strategy. But yeah. So what else is new? Uh. We're living in a horror movie.
We
It
really
feels
are.
like, yeah, and just like a good horror movie, we're in at very least the third installment of this particular franchise. Uh,
Yeah,
uh
gotta love it.
yeah. And it's yeah. Unfortunately, it's also kind of a horror comedy too. Because like we were talking about earlier, our people are not off the hook. Like when I say our people, I mean the comedy people in this sense. But like, um, uh, I would say as bad as it is, like stand-up comedy in the current state of the comedy world and industry has had a negative effect on not only America but on I would say American politics and elections. Like, um, and I in part put some of the blame on uh people letting these like people go unchecked platforming fascists. Like we said, we've been calling out these assholes for years. These terrible people in comedy, and like you said, they just pass it off as comedy. And so many of our peers in comedy have just been okay with it because it's good for their career. Even the supposed like liberals and leftists, you'll see them on Joe Rogan. You'll see them at Skankfest. You see them on Kill Tony, and they're not like. I get that there's like some degree that you're like, oh, how can I do anything in my career without running into these people? But they're doing it and kissing their ass at the same time. So it's like, I put some of it on, a lot of it on our comedy peers for allowing these shitbags to continue to go unchecked and have a growing large platform that they have used to platform fascists and help Donald Trump get elected a second term.
Yep.
But
Because, like I said, it's never just comedy. If you have a large platform, you have followers, these people who listen to Joe Rogan's podcast or Tony Hinchcliffe, they think these people are like their friends. They're delusional listening to these people, hanging on to their every word. It's not just like in a vacuum. These little boys who listen to the Joe Rogan podcast would follow him into a volcano. Like, so his words hold
mhm.
weight with people. So we have to, like you said, check these people and not just let them say and do anything. Their words have actionable consequences.
Yeah, like you see it, like comics will go on Joe Rogan and he'll say wild ass shit and they won't push back at all. At all, because they want the followers. And they say that they need it, they have no like choice because their career depends on it. But you always have a choice. Our careers are not
Yeah.
that important, you know? Because look at where it's fucking got us. Like, look where we are right now, sitting about to start a second Trump presidency. All because you people can't say no to Joe Rogan. Not to simplify to that,
So
but fuck.
like for years when people would say, "Oh, would you ever go on Kill Tony?" I always say, "No, I have no interest in that shit. That's not for me." And they'd say, "Oh, but it could boost your career." Then my career just doesn't need to be boosted then if that's the only way to do it.
Mm-hmm. I've done
It's like
shows
I've
with
worked
Tony
with
before,
people.
but I didn't knowingly do it. I'd done the roast battle, and then he happened to be one of the judges, and it may happen again. Who knows? I don't know. But
Yeah,
uh, if confronted, I know if it happens, I would. I'm gonna have something to say about it. You know. Sorry,
yeah.
I
It's
didn't
like
mean
I'm
to cut
not
you
gonna
off
go
there.
out of my way to find these people and bend over backwards to kiss their asses. For what?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not just a comedian, I'm a person. We have to live in this country. We have to deal with the consequences of our actions.
And you hear this a lot. Well, they were always nice to me, you know. Or he never did anything
Like,
to me. He books me.
yeah, I hear a lot of that with a lot of these shitty individuals.
Yeah, whether we're talking about these guys on the big level with their, you know, the or just even just a shitty guy who runs a mic in your town or whatever, like, it's the
Yeah,
same
and it's the
shit.
same people.
And
It's the same people now who are calling for a revolution and like we need to stand up and fight. And it's like you can't even fucking not go to an open mic that's run by a rapist. Like you can't even
correct,
stand up to these local
right,
shitty people who have no power. So what do you mean we need to stand up and start a revolution? You're not going to do anything the same way you haven't been doing anything.
right. Um, there's people that like there's some people when they're like, I don't know how we're gonna survive another Trump presidency. I'm like, well, you'll probably survive it the same way you survived the last 4 years by sticking your head
Yep,
in the sand and ignoring a genocide, increased police budgets, destruction of the planet, mass deportations, mass incarcerations. You know, all the things you've been ignoring for 4 years. You just keep ignoring them. I mean, so, but like, you ignore them in your personal life. You don't stand up to fucking anybody, like we're saying, you know. And that's what I'm kind of at, like, at a kind of jaded spot, as we're about to
yep,
enter this, you know, new era. Um, because, you know, not to get too deep because we don't have too much time before our break here, but as you know from my own, like, I could tell you from my own personal experiences, the Biden administration actively pursued criminal charges against people for protesting during the Trump administration. And now you want me to go back out in the streets with you and protest Trump when you motherfuckers came at us as soon as you got in power for doing so. Kamala's out there calling
yep,
people to organize and get in the streets. Motherfucker, you were chasing down people like me for protesting Trump and protesting during the Trump administration the last time. So we're not going to be your human
yep.
shields again.
Hell no.
And they especially want, you know, black and brown and queer people to do it.
Yep.
But
I saw a post that said black women turn those capes into a blanket and just take care of yourself. And that's how I feel. Like I'm not
yeah,
putting myself on the line for these people who clearly do not give a fuck about me. Like I said, especially since black women, especially queer black women, especially trans black women, are always the first ones to be thrown under the bus in these situations. But you want us to come save you? No, figure it
hmm.
out.
Do you remember, just an example, do you remember the last time that white people showed up to a Black Lives Matter in Rochester in mass? I do. It was just November 5th, 2020, the day Joe Biden was elected. It was the last fucking time anybody cared. All these people who pretended to care about Black lives, pretended to care about everything, they didn't give a fuck for the last 4 years.
Yep.
I digress, but uh, um, I think we're almost out of time. I think we are actually almost out of time before our break. So we're gonna take a short break, as always, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna talk about our top 3 favorite iconic looks, like the best, you know, look visually, style wise, outfit, whatever you want to call it, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Well, so all right, we'll be back in a second. This is something of a break from something of a podcast. All right. Welcome back from our exciting break. It may have only been a few seconds for you. It was a few minutes. For us, I smoked a cigarette, I got to get that in. How about yourself, Kai? Did you have an all right break?
I started watching Tyler Perry's first TV show. It's awful, horrendous.
Oh, what one is that?
It's called Beauty in Black, and
I see.
yeah, it's a Netflix show. It's about this girl who works in a strip club, has the worst acting I have ever seen in my life.
It's an
In the
old
first
show, you said?
episode, this woman, no, it just came out. It's his first TV
Uh,
show.
I thought he's done a lot of TV shows.
Well, well, I don't know. No, it's not his first TV show, but it's his first Netflix show. But
Okay. Sorry, go ahead.
no, it's a scripted drama. Yeah, it's a scripted drama. It's
Oh.
not supposed to be funny, but I have been cracking up every episode. Like in first
Oh man.
episode, this run over by a car at the beginning of the episode, but like next episode, but like 5 minutes later in the story, she gets hit by another car. It's just so ridiculous.
What's it called?
Everyone should watch it. It's called Beauty in Black. It's the worst show I ever seen in my life.
Hell yeah, I'll have to check it out.
Yeah.
Nice. That's a better break than I had then. Um, excuse me.
Yeah, I'm addicted
So
to the show.
nice. That's cool. So yeah, it's been a little bit since we've done a top three because last time we had like a short little
Mhm.
check-in episode, and I think the one before that was maybe our Comic-Con episode. So
Oh
this
yes.
has been one I think we mentioned a couple months ago and haven't really got around to yet. But it's good to get back in the swing of things. Return to normalcy in these trying times or whatever. But yeah, so our top three for this episode, we're gonna talk about our top three favorite, most iconic looks, outfits, whatever you want to call it. Costumes is a word, costume design, I guess, would be the, academy term for it. Um, Particularly related to like a specific character or something. So yeah, did you want to go first, or you want me to go first, or how are you feeling over there?
I can go first.
Okay.
All right. So I just had to look at my notes because again we picked this topic so long ago. But my first choice is from one of the most ridiculous movies based on one of the most ridiculous comic books. I feel like I have to have a comic book movie in there every time. But Tank Girl, who is played by Lori Petty.
Oh. Describe
So
for me the look.
obviously when I was like yeah, when I was a young punk, seeing her in that movie was just like just iconic to me. And the fact that she's like a leading lady, but she's not, traditional Hollywood hot. She has like most of her head shaved. She's got like rockets on her boobs, just completely over the top, memorable looks, absolutely iconic. I feel like the perfect Halloween costume, perfect Comic-Con cosplay. It's just an iconic look.
Hell yeah. Have you yourself ever done a Tank Girl?
Surprisingly, I haven't.
Hmm. This is
Yeah, I need to
a
get on that
sneak preview of Kaitober 2025.
Maybe that'll just
That's
be
a
my
pretty.
holiday party outfit.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, just because why not? Christmas can be Kaitober. Anything can. You could. There's no bad excuse to dress up. I think.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah, I have. Yeah. So I guess it's the same thing as what you said, which is that made the list kind of a while ago. I had to review my notes. Um. But I guess for my first pick, I'm gonna go old school. One of the most like classic, iconic looks of all time, and maybe a little bit boring or normie to some, but I think if we're gonna talk about iconic character looks, I gotta mention Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, because that's just like the most iconic. Like you have to, like, it's so like if you put on a blue dress and pigtails and red ruby shoes, it's it. Like it's like it's instantly recognizable. It doesn't matter what gender, race, size, color you are. If you wore those three pieces, it's like everyone would know you're Dorothy. Like it's like,
Yeah.
particularly the red shoes. And that's part of the reason why I brought up Dorothy, is because her red shoes are so important that they're like an integral part of the plot and the story. That's how like iconic her outfit is, particularly like down to the red shoes. Is you couldn't, like, the movie would be drastically different if she had if she didn't have those three like items: the hair, the pigtails, the blue dress, and the red shoes. It's like, and particularly because of the time when it first came out, like with it being colorized and like being like those colors pop, being like one of the first like movies you see in color or whatever. But yeah, like I said, kind of a boring choice, I think, but I think it's worth mentioning. Just because, like, that girl had the most iconic pair of shoes that we're talking about it 100 years later. You know, everybody knows when you say ruby red slippers, you're talking about our girl Dorothy.
Yeah, as soon as you said old school, I was like, okay, it's gonna be Dorothy.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's
for
definitely an
sure.
iconic look. I would wear those shoes today. Like
Yeah,
not even part of a costume. I would just wear the shoes.
yeah, for
It's a
sure.
great
Yeah, that's all I got on that one. What about you?
Okay, so for my second pick, I feel like mine have been a lot less iconic than yours so far. But my second one is Pamela Anderson as Barbed Wire.
Oh, yeah,
I feel like
yeah,
that book kind of like changed the scope of what's considered sexy. Like obviously like that whole like leather teased hair, I think people still go for that look today. So since the 90s till now, you could put that costume on and just like it never looks dated. It's very much of the time, but it's still, it's still hot today. Pamela
yeah.
Anderson, like I always call Dennis Mazer at the open mics, is an international sex symbol forever.
Hmm.
And
Right.
yeah, when I think of
Um,
Pamela Anderson herself, I just think of barbed wire first. I guess
that's
because I didn't
wild.
grow up with Baywatch, but
I was gonna say, because as soon as you said Pam Anderson, I thought you were gonna say the red lifeguard suit. You know, like the red bathing suit, the
yeah.
Baywatch look. Um, but I think Pam Anderson is so iconic that like she's got several iconic looks. I'm a fan. I like Pam Anderson. Uh, Very underrated.
Agreed.
Uh, Very talented, and also like dealt with a lot of shit, and is also kind of pretty much a leftist too. Is very, at least as far as like a rich celebrity goes, is one of the more left leaning ones out there.
Yeah, I love her. I think she's underrated. I think when people talk about how a lot of women in the 90s were like just, called sluts. And that was like common to see on TV. You're like, oh, this girl's a slut and she's wearing this, she's doing that. Pamela Anderson got it some of the worst out of all of them. And like now
Mm-hmm.
that Paris Hilton, who is a piece of shit, and all these people are like getting their flowers, I think we need to give Pamela Anderson her flowers because she seems to be legitimately a good person. And she was treated horribly by the media and
Mm-hmm.
almost every partner she's had, just completely
Yeah,
dragged through the
just
mud.
three terrible ex-husbands:
Yeah.
Bret Michaels, Tommy Lee, Kid Rock. Well, I don't know if she married Kid
Mhm.
Rock, but the three famous, like, yeah. But yeah. So I'm here for it. I know she was like big on the like the Bernie train for a while, and like has been really
Mhm.
vocal about a lot of stuff, and people try to like give her shit like, oh, she's just like, they still want to try to like use these old stereotypes like, oh, she's like a dumb bimbo or something, like, you know, whatever ridiculous bullshit they try to push off. But it's like, nah, Pam Anderson is pretty solid. Good choice.
Yeah, so the reason I picked Barbed Wire um over Baywatch mostly was, aside from the fact that I like Barbed Wire more, this was her first starring role in a movie, and it was
That is true.
overshadowed by her sex tape being leaked, which again, it was without her consent. This is sexual assault essentially. And the whole press tour for this movie, instead of talking about her first starring role in a film, which a lot of actors don't even get starring roles ever, so this is a huge accomplishment. And so
Mm-hmm.
instead of talking about the movie, she has to answer all these invasive questions about her sex life and about Tommy Lee's stupid dick. So I just think we should give her flowers more, and I think everyone should watch Barbed Wire.
Hell yeah. That's a great choice. I'm with it. I'm gonna have to go watch Barbed Wire. I do remember having some sexual awakenings watching that movie back in the day.
Me too.
Um, like admittedly had a huge crush. Like, who didn't have a huge crush on Pam Anderson back in the day? But that was like, at that time, that was like the hottest woman that could ever exist when I was like, 12. When I was first learning like what hot women were, it was Pam Anderson for sure. Um, yeah, that's a great choice. Um, yeah, anything else to add on that, or should I go on to my next choice?
Yeah, let's hear your second pick.
Okay. So I'm gonna save this other one for my last one because it'll be more of a. But okay. So my next pick, I'm just gonna go. I'm going with Austin Powers. Like,
Oh yeah.
like I fucking like, because it's so unique and one of a kind. Like, you could, and it's just so much that character, and it's so like, I remember when that character like first came out, that look was ever. It was just before that movie even came out in theaters. I remember because it's just old enough, right? Like, the posters were everywhere with Mike Myers dressed like this god, like this look, and it was just like, from the moment that the first posters came out with him dressed like that, it was a hit. Just the fucking look, like, what the fuck is this guy? And it just like, yeah, from everything from the fucking chest hair to the like blue and the fake teeth and the glasses. It was just like, and it sort of gave this, even though they're making fun of him, it kind of gave this like new image of like a sex symbol male, even though it was a satire. Like, he was a nerdy sort of like goofy, it's Mike Myers with glasses and like, being ridiculous, but he's supposed to be this like sex symbol or whatever. So I always thought that was cool. I was into it because he was like a guy with glasses and bad teeth and chest hair, and he was like the sex symbol.
I always wanted to get one of those like Party City, like, like feminized, like sexy Austin Powers costumes. I think those are so funny, but like the booty shorts.
And you
I
gotta
think
get
that's
the
top
necklace
10
is part
Halloween
of it
costume.
too. The international male symbol, That's how I like learned what that was, like, because it was like in that movie, so you got the necklace, and it's like, oh, okay. I just wanted an excuse to talk about Austin Powers too, because it's one of the most important films of all time. um, and I wanted to say part of the reason I wanted to bring up Austin Powers was to give a special shout out to the man, the myth, the legend, the great Quincy Jones, rest in peace.
Yes, R.I.P.
Who are forever entwined for me in my head, because without that soundtrack and that song like being used in Austin Powers, like, that's really what put that movie also over the top, is that costume and that like just
Quincy Jones doing that, the music, and then him appearing in those movies as himself in the cameo is like how I learned who he was first, and then was like, oh, okay, if Austin Powers says this is the greatest musician ever, then like I felt that way the rest of my life. I knew that as like a baseline, like, oh, I know Quincy Jones is like a great or whatever, and then yeah, but I digress. Oh, behave. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, that's a great pick. So for my final pick, I had one pick originally, but I'm still trying to stick to that thing where I don't reuse a movie. So I'll say what my original pick is, and then I'll say my real pick. So
Okay.
my original final pick was this character does not even have a name. So it's just the unknown fighter from the Mortal Kombat movie. So at the beginning of the
Yeah.
movie, there's this one guy who's wearing like the cleanest micro braids I have ever seen in my life. I have taken that picture to so many hairstylists and be like, can you do my hair like this man from the Mortal Kombat movie? I need my braids this clean. He
I knew you were
dies
going to
like
bring up Mortal
two.
Kombat.
What'd you say?
I said I knew you were going to bring up Mortal Kombat. I was waiting for it.
To this day, I still take pictures of him to braiders. It's like I need my braids to look like this. He dies like two
Hell
minutes
yeah.
in. Never is named at all, but those braids, iconic. But my real pick is Cruella de Vil.
Oh, hell
I
yeah.
think,
That's a pick. Fashion icon.
yeah, Cruella de Vil, aside from Dorothy, might have the most iconic fit of any movie ever.
Mm-hmm.
The split dyed hair, the black and white
Mm-hmm.
outfits, the black and white with a pop of red. Those are all things that are not only iconic, but still popular in fashion today. Like if you if someone had never seen Cruella de Vil as a character and you wore her outfit just like on the streets of New York City, they would think you're some fashionista. Like I wanted the split dye hair my whole life. Once the emo kids started doing it, I was like, no, I wanted this since Cruella. And I think Cruella, I just gotta say, was not a villain. The killing puppies thing was a little fucked up. But if you go back and watch the movie, all she wanted was for the character Anita to not be dragged down by a man. And I think that's very relevant today. Cruella told that girl, you are the best fashion designer I have ever met. You have so much skill, so much potential. I do not want you to let a man ruin you. And what did this bitch do? Immediately married a mediocre man and started having
Mm-hmm.
babies and said, you know what, Cruella, never mind. I'm choosing my family and throwing away this career. Cruella was trying to save her. Now what? She trapped with 101 puppies and babies.
What else are you supposed to do? But, they say make lemon, like when life hands you lemons, make lemonade. When life hands you Dalmatians, you make a sick fucking coat. Right?
Exactly. Now, what are you going to do with 101 puppies? You can't feed them. Might as well make a cute jacket. You
Oh,
only need two or
man.
three puppies.
Yeah, fuck you,
So,
PETA.
yep, Cruella had the flyest fit of all time in movie history, and she was right about everything. She's innocent.
Hell yeah. You heard it here first, folks. I'm with you. You just turned me on to a new thought here on this, which is just like how I'd mentioned, like with the slippers with Dorothy, more so than the slippers, Cruella de Vil, her fit is essential part of who she is and who the story is. It's like a major part of it. Like the whole thing is like, she's wearing them fucking puppies. Like that's the thing. Like
Yes.
she turned him into fashion. Her evil is like so intertwined with her fashion. It's inseparable. She is like what makes her evil is that she does quote unquote evil things for fashion, which is understandable. Us bad bitches, we know. I'm just kidding. And I had one more thought on Cruella de Vil, and it's escaping me. I don't remember. Something about she did it for the fashion, which is important. Oh. So you know how we've talked about on this show before about how they always like whenever there's like the quote unquote villain who's too close to actually being a good guy, they got to make him do something like terrible, like bomb a hospital or like kill somebody for no reason or whatever. That's why they make Cruella a puppy killer, because it was like, oh, she's trying to help her get away from this man. Well, we got to make her bad.
Yep, exactly. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, she just wants women to be independent and not revolve their lives around men. Oh, and
Oh,
she
she's a cruel devil.
inexplicably kills puppies.
Yeah, what a cruel devil.
And it's like, yeah, her costume design was so perfect that it didn't change from the cartoon to the live action. And Glenn Close being so gorgeous and like just
Killed
her
it.
outfits in the movie just really completely elevated it. So yeah, I feel like Cruella de Vil is just like the top choice for this category. Like I said, aside from Dorothy,
That's
probably the most recognizable movie costume.
yeah, that's really good. That's a great choice. Yeah, and I have to mention I can't think of Cruella de Vil without thinking of the episode of The Simpsons when Monty Burns says the see my vest made from real gorilla chest, like where he's basically doing his version of Cruella de Vil where he's got all the completely, that's a side tangent, but that's what I picture in my head, even though while we were talking about it, I got Monty in my brain a little bit. Yeah, that's a great choice, Cruella de Vil. What do you think of the Emma Stone version?
I haven't seen it.
Oh,
I've seen pictures, and she looked great, but I haven't seen the movie.
Yeah, we're more focused on the look anyway, so.
Yeah, that's right. And I think she looked great. There's this like red dress I think I saw a picture of her in, and it just looked gorgeous.
Oh, yeah. I'm pretty sure I saw the whole movie. I remember it being dark. I'm pretty sure there's like a car full of puppies that fall off a cliff or something, like in like the opening scene or something. Like it's like I don't remember, but yeah, something with But she looked great.
I'll have to watch it.
That's good. I have a few honorable mentions I wanted to mention before I get into my last one. If we're done with, unless you got more on Cruella.
No, I could go on about Cruella forever.
I'll rattle my honorable mentions off real quick. Marty McFly, iconic, the vest,
oh yeah,
denim shirt,
yep, the
hair,
vest. Yep.
It's one of the easiest Halloween costumes to do. Like, so many, white dudes do it and do it well all the time. All you need is tight-fitting jeans. It didn't even have to be tight-fitting. Just jeans, a denim shirt, and a vest, and you kind of, can be Marty. Then I would also say Kill Bill, just iconic, Uma Thurman in that. And on the same related note of... I would say April O'Neil from Ninja Turtles, just on the yellow vibe there, and then Neo from The Matrix is my other honorable mention.
Oh yeah. Counterpoint also Trinity.
Yeah, that's kind of all of The Matrix. It's just like it's the whole style from The Matrix was so iconic that it's like. You could dress like that and it's going to be reference to The Matrix at all times, even in Grandma's Boy when he's like, I didn't know they sold clothes in The Matrix, it's just yeah. So are you ready for my third pick? It's going to be a little bit controversial, but also extremely predictable for me, and I don't follow the same rules as you about repeating. So my number 3 choice for most iconic look, I'm going with Rocky. And I have to explain because it's not, there's a lot of different iconic looks in Rocky. You might think My personal favorite would be the, sort of man on the street with the black fedora and all leather with the fingerless gloves, kind of gangster Rocky, hey, that sort of Rocky, hey, on the streets, right? That's maybe that's exactly how Tommy DeVito's agent dressed, if you remember that. Like, it's like kind of this like Italian street look, right? But that's not the most iconic look. And it's not Rocky's, like in the first movie, Rocky's boxing shorts, he famously wears red shorts, but the poster has white shorts. Then by Rocky 2, he's wearing yellow shorts. So you're probably wondering by now, I've said all this, well, what is the most iconic look that you're talking about from Rocky? And so, with all that said, my pick is Apollo Creed's American flag shorts. Because
Oh, yes.
he
Yes,
wears them
that's a
in
good
Rocky 1. He comes out on the screen. He's, Uncle Sam. It's very much who he is. By the time we get to Rocky 3, he passes on those shorts to Rocky when he trains Rocky. So by Rocky 3 and Rocky 4, Rocky is now wearing that iconic look that Apollo wore for the first 2 movies. Then, by the time we get to Creed, the newest movies, those same shorts that Rocky wore and Apollo wore, Adonis Creed, Michael B. Jordan, gets handed them from Rocky. So they are iconic for 3 different characters, and they they bridge the entire franchise all the way through. And so those red, white, and blue shorts as a boxer, that's my pick. The Apollo Creed / Rocky / Adonis Creed boxer shorts. Boxing fit.
That's a great pick. I definitely thought about doing that one as a Halloween costume a few times.
Apollo Creed?
Yeah.
Yeah. I can see it. I want you. Oh yeah, because he wears them in Rocky 4 again. Like Apollo has them back on again. They go back and forth too, because yeah, exactly. So I think that we had a pretty good list. So to sum it up, my 3 picks were Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, Austin Powers, and the Rocky Apollo Creed boxing shorts. Those are my top 3 picks for my favorite iconic looks. Kai, what were your top 3?
Okay, mine were Tank Girl with the rocket boobs. All of Barbed Wire's looks and barbed wire. And of course, Cruella DeVille with the puppy coat.
Incredible. I'd like to see this runway. Just one after the other, like strutting their stuff, like my 3 and your 3, just like walking that runway together. Yeah, that's pretty fun. I'm glad we finally got to that. I think that was my suggestion when we did it before, so I think that means, unless you got more to add on this topic, it's up to you.
Oh, I thought it was my
with
pick.
Our next top 3.
I thought this
Did
one
you
was
just do
mine.
3?
I think so. Oh,
Did you pick this?
I think
Might
so.
have. I mean, do you want me to pick one then? I didn't think I was going to, but I can. Let me think. Okay, let me think. Okay, let's go with just out of okay, so let's go to top 3 holiday movies because we're about to be into the season. I see your background. You got your Terrifier Halloween going, or Terrifier Christmas or whatever. We are now
Yep.
bridging the gap.
We're in between
between
Halloween and
spooky
Christmas, so I got
season.
my in between movie.
Yeah. Exactly. We're between spooky season and Mariah Carey season, or Kai-tober and Mariah season. And I'm not a big fan of the November holiday. It's not really one I choose to celebrate. So we kind of just get to roll right into Christmas. And you might not be thinking that I'm too festive. I'm not that. Oh, you wouldn't think of me as too into Christmas. Well, not particularly into the holiday, but I am into genre films, and I do like Christmas movies, particularly because I fucking love the Muppets, and there's quite a few Muppet Christmas choices. I think 3 of the top 8, we'll get to it later. I'm spoiling it. I'm spoiling my thoughts here, but when we come back, we'll talk about holiday movies. How do you does that sound good?
Okay, yeah, let's do it. Top 3 holiday movies.
Cool. Any other thoughts here this week as we settle into MAGA 2 Electric Boogaloo?
No.
Now more than ever, our voices as comedians are so important, Kai. We must continue to podcast for the sake of democracy. It depends on us. With that said, you can find us Something of a Podcast. That's us, the only podcast brave enough to say, I'm something of a podcast myself. We're at Something of a Pod on Instagram, at Something of a Podcast on YouTube, on Spotify, Facebook. I'm Mike Gamms. I'm on all the apps at Mike Gamms. Well, not all of them. Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. If you don't want to hear anything about me from politics, Facebook or Instagram are a good choice. If you want to hear politics, I'm screaming out my ears every 30 seconds on Twitter to zero engagement about politics. So if you want to hear me screech about going to hell in a bucket through electoral politics, you can find me on Twitter. And KaiVonDoom, where can the good people find you on the internet?
I'm everywhere. TikTok, Instagram, at Kai_VonDoom, and then Facebook, KaiVonDoom Comedy.
Hell yeah. And if you are in Rochester, make sure to check out Kai's posts. Kai does a lot of shows in Rochester, has a weekly mic. And if you are in Los Angeles, make sure to follow my posts, because I have a twice-a-month show now in Los Angeles on Sundays, as well as some other shows. So if you want to come see some comedy on either coast, we got you covered, as long as you are in the greater Rochester or greater Los Angeles areas. But with all that said, I think that's going to do it for us today. Remember, with great power comes great responsibility. All right, bye.
I'm something of a podcast myself. I'm something of a podcast myself. I'm something of a podcast. I'm something of a podcast myself.